Now let's understand the Lightning Web Component folder structure. So you can see that there will be HTML file, JavaScript file, configuration, and CSS file. So we can simply create components using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. That's it. That's all you want. So the HTML provides the structure for the component. JavaScript defines the core business logic and event handling, and CSS provides the look and feel of it. So here you can see I have created hello world. So once we do create Lightning Web Component, so I chose to create the name hello world, and here the name is hello world.html. So this file is mandatory. So these three files which are mandatory are HTML file, then the JavaScript file, and meta.xml. So we will be going in detail for them. So if you see here, we have a project here, but right now it doesn't have anything. So any Lightning Web Component. So I will simply create one. Create Lightning Web Component, and we give the name, and we choose the location. So it shows that okay, we want to choose to this location. So we will be simply clicking on it, and it is creating the Lightning Web Component. So we can create here, or we can also create using the terminal. So both are the two options available to us. So now you can see that these are there. So now we can understand all the files in little bit more depth. So when we come to the HTML, hello world.html, so template is written. So we just understood like what is template. Here we can write the markup inside the template. So basically LWC use the templating system, and which uses the virtual DOM to render the component. So every component requires an HTML file, and it will be having this root template app, and where we will be holding the markup, and all the content will be inside it. Then we have the GS file. This one we will be understanding in more depth. So let's go back. So before that, we will be understanding the folder and file naming convention. So once we are creating the Lightning Web Component, so it must begin with a lower case letter. So even if you put hello H capital, but still it will be creating Lightning Web Component hello as small. So you can just try it. Then it must contain only alphanumeric or underscore character. Then it should be unique in namespace. Then we should not be including white space, like my first component, the space should not be there, and it cannot end with underscore, and cannot contain two consecutive underscores, and cannot contain a hyphen. So you can go ahead and try this, and you will see that which are there, which are needed in the Lightning Web Component name when you are creating. So we just discussed the HTML file. Now we want to discuss the JavaScript file. So we saw that there was import Lightning element from LWC, and then there is export default class hello world extends Lightning element. So to understand this terminology, let's go to little basic. So something is called module. So ECMAScript 2015, that is ES6, introduced the module system. You can consider module as files, so a group of files. So modules can use directives like export and import to call functions of the module like file from one another. So if you want to import one file, then we can simply use the import and export to do that. Now let's understand the exporting a module in a little bit more detail. So this is all these concepts are coming from ECMAScript. I have taken it from ES6, so you can go ahead and check that. So they're default exports and then named export. So like you saw that code, export default class hello world. So that is default export. Module that need to export only a single value can use default export. So there can be only one default export per module. So here we are writing export default class hello world extends lightning element. Lightning element is nothing but a class. So through by which we are able to create our own custom element. Then we saw that there is a default export which we are just using, and then there is something called named export. So with named export we can have multiple exports. With default export we can only have one, but with named export we can have multiple. The name of import module has to be same as the name of export module. So what we understand by this is that if here we want to change hello world, we can do that. We can have different name, but as a best practice, the name of class should usually match the file name of the JavaScript class. But that is not required when it comes to default export. But when it comes to the named export, the name of import module has to match. And we can have multiple named export. So you can see here that export is there. So we can have multiple name export, but default name export has to be just one. Now there's something called mixed export, as in we can have both named export and default export in one JavaScript file. So there will be one default export like we discussed, and then the same file we can have multiple other export. So you can try it. That's how both the export works. Now we had a line called import lightning element from LWC. So that is importing a module. So to be able to consume a module like file, we use import keyword. So here we are using import lightning element from LWC. LWC is nothing but the base module from which we are importing the lightning element. So the core module in lightning web component is LWC. The import statement helps in importing it. And lightning element is nothing but a custom wrapper of the standard HTML elements. So basically lightning element is a class, and this is a wrapper to bring the standard elements. So that's how our code works here. So if I go back, we are able to understand what is import lightning element from LWC and what is export default class. So export default is nothing but the default export. Now there is third file. The third file is hello world JS meta XML. Now to understand this file, we can see here that we have XML version, coding, lightning component, API version. So basically what are these? So if we talk about this file, it defines the metadata of the component. So what is the component, where it can be used, how it can be used. So that is what metadata configuration file does for us. So if we talk about like is expose is written as false, so we have to mark it as true if we want to see it in the app builder, and then it gives the API version. So these are the basics of creating a file, and then you can go ahead and read the basic in the chapter 8, understanding the lightning web component folder structure. So these are the mandatory files. Apart from that, you can also create a CSS, but it should be from the same name. So you can create a new file, hello world.css. but it should be of the same name like others. So that is how you are able to create. And then there is something called hello world.svg. This helps in having the icon in the app. So these are the ones, these are the file structure when we are talking about the LWC. That comes under the force app. Here in the LWC section, you are able to create it.